There's an alternative ending, and I'll show you how to do that. It's with bias binding tape rather than the herringbone twill tape. Both are equally as good, equally strong. It's a matter of choice as to what you've got in your sewing cupboard, I guess, or your sewing cabinet. I've got some twill. I really like it, but if you've got bias binding, it's just as good and just as strong, and I'll show you how we do that. Yep, okay, this is the one with the bias binding. What I've got is I've clipped it all on, I've folded it over nicely, I've got the elastic in the back, and I will fold that forward to give it another little clip on or a little sew on there. I'm going to start at this end because you want to sew the bias binding together. I'm just going to fold the edge over so we've got no raw edge, and I've got a nice clean edge there. I've folded it in half, so hopefully that's going to work. I've got pink cotton in, so hopefully it won't. Oh, let's just make sure that works. Get my cotton up from below, and I'm just gonna go, and hopefully, and take that just to cast it on. Make it. So I'm sewing the bias binding in half. I haven't sewn these edges at all, I'm just sewing the bias binding. I guess what you could do is you actually needn't do these edges if you're using bias binding. You could just sew along the bottom and encapsulate the aluminium in there, and then just encapsulate the raw edges in the bias binding, so kind of saves a step, I guess. So I've got the elastic in there behind. Let's hopefully it's all gonna work. Oh yes, it worked, hurrah. And I'm gonna take these out as I go. Hopefully the bias binding is all remaining behind. I'll find out in a minute. And oops, machine doesn't like it. So I'm just gonna go. Just sewing the bias binding all the way back. This is just a bit of a faff, but it gives you a nice neat finish. If only I could actually sew straight. I'm just going to turn that end over so that it's got a nice neat finish when we get to the end. And cut the excess off. And there you've got it encapsulated there. What I might do, in fact I will do, it just went a bit wonky when it went over the edge there. Just be aware of that. What I will do is just give it another, so it's out, it's making the elastic, because at the moment it's folded back underneath. I'm just going to do another line of stitching on the edge of the, on the edge there. Oh, come on. Take it back again. Take that off. I'm this is just, I'm just belt and bracing it here, just because I can. And round. Something fell on the floor. Maybe one of my clips, I know it will. And you do exactly the same that side. So I would clip it all together, put the elastic in, and do exactly the same as I've done there. I'll show you the finished one in a minute. That's what you get if you use the bias binding. It's got the nose clip in the top which bends. It opens out nicely. It's the same kind of finish as the other one. But I think for preference, for me, I like the tape better because I can see what's happened to the elastic. Hey-ho. But both, and they both end up looking exactly the same, really, and doing exactly the same job. So whatever you've got in your sewing cupboard, whether it's the herringbone tape or whether it's bias binding, both would be equally good. I've used what I call knicker elastic on this. It's 6mm elastic, flat elastic. We're hoping to get some different elastic that is slightly thinner and softer. Whatever you do, we thought this would be good. This is the round, stretchy elastic. To try and sew through that with my sewing machine, you can see it's left threads in there that I can't even get out. I was virtually breaking a needle every time I tried to sew through it. So I really wouldn't. And this is a hardcore machine. It goes through anything. I really don't use that because, no, just don't. You'll ruin your machine. The flat elastic is so much better. I can't begin to imagine what you'd use that for in dressmaking or in things like this. So garment construction. But it's way too thick. I'm sure it's got to use somewhere, but don't use it. So I've been using, rather than pins, which will make it, it's too thick. It makes it, if I were to try and pin through here, it's too thick and it'll make it distort. So these little binding clips are really perfect because you can whip them out very easily and they hold in place really well. And those are the two finished items.